All right, so now we're going to lay in our cool values on the white stripes of the flag. Okay, so I'm just going to start out with my 3/4 inch flat brush. And again, this is just a fun little value study so that I can figure out kind of how to mix my colors and how to get the values so that this flag looks like it has a wave to it. You know, I'm trying to make this section in here lighter and more like sunshine is hitting it, so it's a little bit warmer and lighter in here. And then it gets a little bit darker and cooler over here. So that's the whole objective of this painting. And so I've got my, my colors laid out here. I'm going to use another mixing plate. I'm going to try and just get a base layer in there first of, well, you know, with whites, like we said, I said earlier, when you're doing whites, you want to save your whitest white, so you need to make sure you get values around, you know, 6 and 7 laid in first, or else you're never going to see these lighter strokes. So that's where we're going to shoot for, getting a mid-range value. So I have to do that with blue because I want it to be cool. So I'm going to start with blue-violet, put some of that on my plate over here. A little bit of blue-violet, and then I'm going to add some white. And this is going to be like, kind of like an underpainting, you know, across this whole stripe. I don't know what value this is yet. I can hold this up against my value finder. It's kind of hard to tell. That might be a little bit light. It looks like it's maybe an 8. Might be a 7. Acrylic paint does dry darker than it looks when it's wet. So let's just see. Let's just try this. Get that in there. So it is a warm blue. It's blue-violet. It's warmer than the blue, but it is a cool color overall. I know that's confusing. It's cool on the color wheel compared to all the warms. But blue-violet is technically a warmer color than phthalo blue. So that's what I use there. Blue-violet, it's ultramarine blue mixed with white. And then I have one value going over the whole thing just as a base layer. So I'm going to do the opposite. In the sunshine area, the lighter area, very often with cools, it's more interesting to use a cool in the light. So I'm going to actually use my phthalo blue for this area. And so I need to pinch this out of my brush real quick. Pinch this out of my brush. And so now I'm going to get some phthalo blue, this one here. Put that on my plate, this little bit of phthalo blue. Get myself some white. Mix this up. You want to make sure you got all that other blue out of your brush. So you see the difference between phthalo blue mixed with white and ultramarine blue mixed with white. This is a cooler blue because it goes closer to yellow on the color wheel. So obviously this is a much lighter value than what you see there on the color wheel. I'm not using, you know, pure blue like I did on the color chart that I did on the paper a minute ago. So let's see how this looks. It's the same value, but it is a temperature shift. You can see that it's different than the ultramarine blue, which is what I want. I want to show some differences happening in this area. Now I could go even lighter, but I don't want to do that because I want to be able to see my whitest whites like I have over here in this. So I'm going to leave that alone. Let's get a little bit darker over here. You know, we're going to see how we see the darks in our red stripes. We need to add the darks in our white stripes as well. So I'm going to go back to using my warm blue. Yep, my blue violets. I got to get this phthalo out of my brush, pinched it out. And I'm just going to get some more blue violet here. Mix that into what I had before. Let's see what this looks like. This is obviously a much darker value. Let's put that in over here. And I was just totally guessing. I don't know what value this is, but it seemed right, it felt right. And right away I can see that it's helping establish that form all through that whole thing. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush now. If I had to guess my value, I can hold this up here. And yeah, I got it over all the way over here into like a 3, a 2 or a 3. Maybe that's too dark actually because it's a white stripe after all. So that's okay. Let's get a little bit lighter. We'll add more white to this and just go over that a little bit. Again, this isn't really a realistic painting, you know. So let's try this. This is just a little bit, let's see if we bring this over here. Because right about here is where it starts to get dark, so I need to do that on my white stripe too, right? Right about here is where it starts to get darker. So let's carry that all the way across here. And that is definitely where I'm squinting as I'm looking at this, and that's definitely, yeah, it's carrying that form all the way through. Very good. Now I'm going to use my blue greens and violets as kind of accent colors. I mean, you know, this is abstract. It's not a total accurate value study. I jumped around and put teals and violets in to make it pretty. But overall, there is a value scheme going on. And now I'm going to kind of break the rules and stray off and get a little more abstract with it. But I have that core value that's going to hold it together so that you know that there's form. Once I have that established, I can kind of veer off and have fun, you know, changing it up just a little bit. So that's basically what I did. I started using, like, I can use my blue-green right here. Bring that over here, and maybe I'm going to mix that in with this and get a darker value. Let's see how that works in right here. That looks pretty good. You know, I might put pieces of it here and there. The reason why I used, you know, blues and greens is here in this painting is because they complement each other. These you know, blue greens complement these red oranges. They just make them pop a little bit more, you know. So that's why I used that. Here I've got blues and oranges right up against each other, and they just all help each other pop. Now that looks a little bit too dark, so no problem. I can just add more white to that. But I hope that this is starting to show you, you know, what my rationale was, you know, with this painting. And I hope that you're seeing how values, you know, relate to color. So let me just go over that. That was just too dark. This is a transition right here. And that helped it much, much more. And I can also make this just a little bit different out here. Maybe put some of these over here. And that's basically it. I mean, I could go, I could make this a little bit darker over here again. But I think what I want to do over here is get more of a pop right here in this light area, and that's where I started to incorporate some yellow greens. So let's do that. And all I did for that is to take, let's do that on here, take this, add some white to it now. Now that looks a little too cool, so I'm going to add a little bit more yellow. And let's see how that looks on here. And again, I'm going to do my bold strokes, scoop, figure out where I want it, and place it and leave it. Nice bold strokes in that highlight area. And that's what I would do. I would just continue doing more strokes laid on top, just like that. If I want to do my whitest white in here, I definitely am going to have a nice pop because these values are definitely in the 5s and 6s. So I can go ahead, I mean, technically I'd let this dry, but for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to use my smaller brush so I get a real nice, clean stroke. Load my brush first, scoop, get a decent amount on there, figure out where you want to do it, bam. Lay it down and leave it alone. And that is it. So I hope that shows you. We did a value study here. We figured out how to make our colors have a value range so that we see that form. And when I squint down at this, I can definitely see the wave in the flag. If you're not seeing it enough, you would make your darks darker. The darker you make your darks, the more range of value you have, the more that form is really going to show. So that's it for this, you guys, for this step.